Abrahamson.
My name is Ben Abrahamson, and I'm the director and founder of the Sadiqin organization. And what the organization does is historical research into Islam and Judaism with the intention to provide material to religious scholars that are involved in cultural and religious diplomacy. And I read recently that the Religious Affairs Directorate, the Deputy Chairman for Foreign Relations here in Turkey, noted that religious diplomacy will continue to play an effective role in the way that international relations take place. He said, this is Mohammed Gomez, said that the religion has always been a factor that affects international relations. We see that throughout history, religion was a factor both in the founding of states and in their dissolution. Today, the impact of religion in international relations is becoming increasingly more valuable, and we'll see it peak in the future. Religious diplomacy has been credited for allowing Christians and Muslims to reach out to each other in Sudan, to assist in the release of the Korean captives by the Taliban. It's been termed as able to achieve some kind of Abrahamic relations, high-level relationship between the United States and even Iran. Perhaps an example of this is the approach in Iraq and Afghanistan, where religious community leaders were approached first in order to provide some kind of stability. In Turkey, here, the observant people have used any excuse to work towards reconciliation in different communities in the southeast region. Religious holidays, relief organizations, volunteer health professionals, private schools are doing a spectacular job at working towards mutual understanding and reconciliation. Mutual respect is the starting point of any dialogue and eventually paves the way to mutual understanding. One who truly understands the teaching of his religion is gentle, friendly, and likable. I'm reminded of a hadith in Ahmad. It says that, shall I not tell you who among you is the most beloved to me? This is the words of the Prophet. And will be closest to me on the day of resurrection. He repeated it 2 or 3 times. He said, those of you who are best in manners and in character. So dispelling stereotypes and misunderstandings is a key issue. One of the mistaken ideas is that religious tolerance is a strictly non-religious, or at least a religiously skeptical idea. But in fact, historically we find that from the early modern Christians in the West to the Ottomans in the East, we find that deeply religious people argued in favor of religious tolerance, and they did so on religious grounds. For the sake of time here, I won't quote the things here, but the Quran reinforces this message. For instance, in the Surah Al-Yunus, it says, to every people was sent a Rasul, sent a lawgiver, and when their lawgiver comes before them, the matter will be judged between them with justice, and they will not be wronged. So in fact, we see the word Islam is used in 2 ways, as a deen, as a general law, and as a sharia, as a covenant. And one will find that everywhere that the word deen is used, it refers to the universal nature of religion. And when the word sharia is used, it refers to the particular nature of a religion as it applies to a faith community. In this sense, one could be reminded that what is called the deen of Islam is somehow related to what the rabbis call the deen of the Prophet Noah. And this is also related to what Christians call natural law, the law which is binding upon all mankind at birth, the law that they are exposed to and required to give account for until they're given opportunity to understand the message of Christianity in their terms. In the Torah, it says in the book of Exodus that the children of Israel were not supposed to make any covenant or any treaty with a nation until they had agreed to this basic deen, this basic religion. It is basically the 10 commandments, it's actually 7 commandments, and a belief in God. So what we see, I heard this mentioned, Ambassador Baker mentioned it, if I understood him correctly, that the European Union is not as strong as it could be because it doesn't take advantage of this universal message of faith. And on the other hand, Turkey is in a tremendously good position to have some kind of Islamic union led by Turkey, which would include Israel and other sovereign states, could succeed in incorporating scriptural moral values in a way that no other state could. One last thing to say here is a verse in the Quran. It's in Surah Hujurat. It says, O mankind, we created you from one male and one female, and we made you into different nations and tribes, so that you may know, and the Arabic there is lit'arafu, should know each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of God is the one who is the most righteous. Truly, God has made knowledge of all things and is fully aware. And the word lit'arafu has the connotation of to acknowledge and to recognize, and is related to the root of bil ma'rufi, which means to be fair, to honorable, and in a kind manner. Next week is, for the Jewish people, is the holiday of Shavuot, of Pentecost. And that's the time when many people would come to the Temple Mount or to Jerusalem to pray together with the Jews. In fact, during the 2,000 years ago, the kings of, the Herodian kings, expanded the Temple Mount. And there were people that came from Arabia, from Parthia, from Persia, from Syria, and Bedouins, all these places. And when they expanded the Temple Mount, they didn't expand the part for the children of Israel. They expanded the court of nations. And anybody who's familiar with the second chapter of Acts is familiar with the tremendous number of variety of people that came during that time. So this is the time we see next week. So I'm reminded of this in seeing all the different people here, both Muslim, Jewish, and Christian people who are here at this room. We're reminded of this time when hundreds of thousands of believers would come together to pray together in Jerusalem, and there was no distinction, there was no class, but everyone worshiped together, God together. It says in Psalms, in Psalm 115, it says, O Israel, trust in the Lord, for he is their help and their shield. And house of Aaron, trust in the Lord, for he is their help and shield. And you that fear the Lord, trust in the Lord, for he is help and the shield. So we see there's Israel, there's the priests, and we have the God-fearers. And this is what we saw in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, where hundreds of thousands of people would come together, both children of Israel, the children of Aaron, and the God-fearers. And it's interesting that when we talk about God-fearers in the Torah, they're often called the children of Jethro. And the word in Aramaic that's used for the children of Jethro is Salamai, or Muslimai. So 2,000 years ago, we were already hearing the word Muslimai. So I just want to end with a final, close with the words of Qadada Nuam. And in my mind, he summed up the religious diplomacy in 6 words. We said, Adin wahid wahad wa ala shiraya al mukhtafiya. The religion is one, it's common to everyone, but the covenants are diverse.